exciting.
I don't think this is a good sign that we've started off right. Motion by Mr. Mims to elect the slate of officers, Monica, Ralph, yada, yada, yada. Motion passed. Everyone against Haywood.
I just want it on the record, baby. I want it on the record.
That's great.
I went kicking and screaming.
Right. Against herself.
But I'm better. Okay, now. We're good? Okay.
It just proves we're an independent group.
Absolutely. Not afraid to speak our mind. Okay, I'm going to call the March 6th meeting of the Downtown Development Authority to order. The first order of business is the approval of the February 21st minutes. Anybody
I move that we approve.
Second.
vote? All in favor? It's passed. Excellent. One of the things during our meeting, when we speak, because of they're still not familiar with our voices, but when you speak, it sounds kind of formal, but speak out. This is Monica, and then so that when she's listening to the recording, she knows which one of us is actually speaking. A little formality, but there. Old business. We'll start with the bylaws discussion. I think there's been a lot on the Dropbox. The package that Stephanie so kindly put together for us has the drafts, like kind of some stuff that was going back and forth. I know I sent some questions. Did you get any other questions from anybody else jump in on this?
Let me ask you a stupid question on the Dropbox. Whenever you install the thing and you open up the Dropbox, because I never used it before, and you take all those files out and you copy them onto your desktop.
Right.
That didn't mess anybody else up, right?
No.
Okay, so that's not like the copy that everybody's playing with.
When you save it back, if you make any changes, like what I do is I just put my initials at the end, so it's my copy with my comments.
Okay, so if I've moved it out of the box, though, okay, now it's on my desktop and the box is empty. There's nothing there left. So if I make a change and then I stick it back in the box, what'll it do?
When you download it, it doesn't actually take it out of there, does it?
It took it out of my version.
Yes, it doesn't do that for mine, I don't think.
Well, it did with me.
I know.
I was worried. I was worried it took it out of everybody's box. It's like Lonnie stole it.
If you move something from one Dropbox to another Dropbox folder, I know it will remove it.
It's a deal.
Okay.
Thank you.
Unless you can copy it. You can't right click and copy it.
Well, I'm like, Alani, I do the same thing you do. I download it, and then when I have it open,
Mm-hmm.
and then I save it back up to the Dropbox.
No, but see, when I had it open, I just dragged them all out and stuck them on my desktop. I didn't leave them in that box because I didn't know that box wasn't something that was going to kind of come and go.
Don't look at me.
All I know is if I have it open, either I guess if you save, because you have the option of saving it to your hard drive, which is what you did by dragging. So if you were to go save it back on the Dropbox, I suspect it would ask you, do you want to overwrite that file if you were to save it with the exact same file name?
Okay.
But if I change
as long as I didn't mess
anything,
anybody else up, I'm not worried.
yeah. If you change anything, why don't we just do it like protocol? Just stick your initials on the end, so we know who's.
And a date, initials and a date would be great.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Sometimes there's multiple revisions or whatever.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Perfect. That's the difference we've got in Box now, although Dropbox is so flippin' easy. You actually work on the same document. It's a little bit different, but this, maybe if it gets more complicated, we can change that. So did anybody else, Stephanie put together, I had some questions and some stuff that I recommended pulled out. I think you incorporated most of that in here, in this draft. I think they were things that we had kind of brought up before. Do you want to just go all the way through the sections and just confirm each one,
let's
or
do
the name of the body is the Downtown Development Authority of the City of Roswell. DDA, good with that?
Well, there was somebody threw out calling it the Roswell Development Authority as opposed to the DDA.
The RDA.
Well, that's the official name that's on the resolution and on
The Downtown Development Authority.
Affairs. Yeah, on their registration, their authority registration. I mean, if you wanted to call it something almost like a DBA, I think you can call it however you want to.
Yeah, the only thing that might, because our area of influence here is beyond downtown.
Downtown, right.
Or whatever we think is
Right.
downtown right
Right.
now, right? That we go over to Georgia 400 and
Yeah.
so forth,
Right.
that we could send a different message that we're not just downtown. We are for areas far beyond downtown. So the Roswell Development Authority would just infer to those who don't know that we have a much broader reach versus downtown. They may not even call us if they're looking at 400 or somewhere up Highway 9 or
Right.
something. That's the only reason I bring that up, is that it would make us more all-encompassing, which we are by virtue of our boundary.
One of the things that I picked up, I went to the training a couple of days ago down in Tifton. Their point was that because of the evolution of towns over time, there may be one downtown at one period and a discontiguous area over here, or it may be fragmented, and so it doesn't necessarily have to be contiguous. And again, to your point, the definition of the area for the authority to exercise development over is only subject to resolution by the city council anyway. So, where a finger or a block is drawn in, and I think it does make it more broad, just call it Roswell Development Authority.
Yeah.
Can I do an interruption here? And I'm sorry. There's already a development authority, so that may be confusing. Allow us to go back and check with the attorney, because there's already an entity known as the development authority. We don't want to create confusion, so. let
You
us
mean this
check
one
that.
called the Downtown Development Authority of the City of Roswell?
There's this, and there's.
Oh, there's another one?
There is a development authority.
Oh,
I mean,
another
there's-
one. Another
it's
entity
citywide.
other than us
There is
called
a
Development Authority.
there is a
In the city of
development
Roswell?
Yeah, it's citywide.
Is it active?
Oh.
It's not active, but
Okay.
it still exists.
Okay.
Oh.
It is
They
not
have
active,
something
but it
put-
still exists.
You have all their money, too.
One of their,
That's
one
right.
of their.
What's the resolution and the mandate for the Roswell Development Authority, and how does that how does this,
yeah.
the council differentiate there?
It's in a different section of the statute,
Yeah.
and it covers citywide. There's no drawn area for it, it's just automatic.
Development
As well as the
As well.
the designated downtown area?
A development authority
Yes.
can be citywide. A downtown development authority, you have to have the boundaries which were and are established by the elected body.
So, but could we have, if that were to be reinvigorated, could we have conflict?
Well, it could be, but if it's going to be reinvigorated, I would think that the elected officials, we have one here, would not set up something that would conflict with this body. It is not unusual for the downtown development authority to become the development authority.
Just kidding.
It's just because there's already that entity. Let us go back and check.
Okay.
Okay, well, he has their checkbook.
He has.
Well, no, I have a statement of account.
From their checkbook.
They actually have $13,500 in their account. We got $5,200, so.
So I moved.
Can we
that
become-
That we
I
moved the
I
money.
that we moved the money.
I don't think you'll get a second on that.
Who's them? I mean, who's on
How
that?
many of them are?
I'm sure this is it's just another defunct kind of, or is it not
You
defunct,
know,
but
not many of them are
um,
living.
Well, if that money is there, I mean, that should be a serious thing to go in front of council then at some point.
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
would address that.
having static money
Well, we're
sitting
pretty,
around.
we're a pretty effective group if in 30 minutes we've doubled our money.
Like quadrupled.
That's right.
So maybe as a matter of record for the minutes that we'd want to go, let's investigate what the officially the development authority of the city of Roswell, a couple of things, get its charter, get educated on the legal documents, ascertain what the ability to access that money and bring it into the development authority,
Yes.
and whether that, I guess it can just stay.
May not, you may not, I don't know for sure, be able to bring it into the development.
Yeah, whether the development
Because
authorities
they're
can be
both
merged in
separate
some way.
statutes with
Yeah.
separate responsibilities.
Right.
But could council act to merge the two entities by an act?
Well, why don't we, I would propose that we do some investigation between now and the next meeting, and maybe we assemble some information for, Alice, between you and Stephanie, we can decide what we can do or can't do maybe, or legal staff too, I guess. Okay.
So does the name in the bylaws have to match up with the legal name? I mean, I would think
I'd have to check into that.
I would think so.
I would think it would, and then maybe below that, we can just put, for purpose of public, blah, 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 our DBA will be the Roswell Development Authority.
We can add that, and our legal department is gonna be looking over this anyway, so they may, flag it and say this is something they wanted to do, I'm sure.
If nothing else, it'll force the question if we got a conflict with this one. So let's
Let's do that. Anybody have any comments on section 2? The purpose of the DDA is to stimulate and sustain economic development in downtown Roswell by encouraging cooperation and building leadership, by advancing a positive image of downtown and promoting it as an exciting place to live, shop, and invest, by sustaining and improving the appearance of downtown, and by strengthening and expanding the economic base of downtown. The DDA serves nonprofit and public purposes and is an institution of pure public charity.
Is that legally as safe? That last line concerns me a little bit.
That may have to do with the organization as a 501c3.
The public
Lonnie, what's
charity
your
part,
concern with that?
What? The whole thing?
No, just that.
Making such an assertion.
Yeah, it's a defining thing, and you can get into a lot of debate over whether a parking deck is for the benefit of the public or whether that really is the benefit of the retailers. And I just don't think we want to go there. I mean, we want to keep out of as much debate as possible. And I didn't know if this whole paragraph was essentially taken out of the creation of
Right.
the DDA in the first place.
I would think did it come from the original
It
bylaw?
came from, no, we don't have that one. It came from Delonagos bylaw.
Well, when you guys moved to create or recreate the DDA, was there any language that came up in front of the council as to what the purpose was?
I think it was the tools that were available to it. It gives the city tools to do things to promote redevelopment and economic development outside of the city purview. So I don't remember any charitable option, but
Can we just strike that?
I would just strike the
I would
last
say
sentence.
strike what you're comfortable with, and then we'll have legal give us, if there's some issue. It could be because of the 501c3, but I would think nonprofit would be more appropriate than charities, but last sentence.
Is that what we
Yeah.
we actually are? We're a 501c3. Is that?
Not automatically, we have to call for it.
Oh, what?
But that's what we're going to do, right?
What is this entity? What legal form? What legal form is
It's
it?
a state chartered organ of the state of Georgia. There was a legislation that authorized each municipality in Georgia to have a development authority like this. That was one way they were founded, and I think that's how this one was done. There was also, long time ago, there were local legislative acts of councils and county boards. And then there was also a process whereby the state constitution could have been amended. But the key thing, that I think this one was done per what's called enabling legislation by the state of Georgia. And it's a quasi-government, it's a government agency.
Okay.
So we don't have to file a tax return, for example.
Well, it's got a tax ID, interesting enough.
Yeah.
Right here.
Do you have to file one if there's not a certain amount of money going through? I thought if it's over a certain amount of money, 50,000, you have to file something. You don't have to pay taxes, but I think you
Right.
still have to. Do you know if legal's plan to set it up as a 501c3 or is planning on it being set up?
We have to hire an attorney to do that, legal
Good
hire
lord.
an attorney.
'Cause I would think either a 3 or a 6 would be appropriate. Some of the other state, like the CBD, is a 501c6, and no matter what you call it, it always has to have Convention and Visitors Bureau in the name because it's a state charter, and that may very well be the case.
It's not, there's no members to it, really. It's a board.
Right.
We call them members, but it's a board,
There's
so.
no paid memberships, so it can be either one.
Well, I did notice in comparing these bylaws to some of the other just standard nonprofits. And that goes for, I mean, not just the one we're trying to create, but the ones that you sent as examples, that they are a fraction of the size of the rest of the standard charities out there that I'm familiar with. So I didn't know if that was just unto itself, because this is a state chartered organization, if it really has a completely, kind of twisted set of rules, it's a little bit different. So, I mean, that was a good question as to, what kind of entity, is this a unique type of entity?
Well, I think that's what Richard referenced, the state-created entity. And
So it's not
So
in the
there's-
box, I mean.
yeah, it's not in a box we're familiar with, I'm sure.
Yeah.
The mission, I'm jumping up, but the mission at Kingsland doesn't include that language, that last sentence, by the way.
Yeah, we're gonna be different.
But I mean, just so as far as, because of its entity type, I don't think we need to have that.
I would say make it what you're comfortable with, and then if the attorney has issues with any parts, they can help you revisit.
I'd almost rather err on the side of less is more,
Yeah.
especially if we don't understand the implications of some language, to just make sure the things
Be much easier to
more
add something back in.
factual-based,
Yeah.
compliance-based, we stay there until we kind of into this thing and we really understand a little bit more, and maybe there's more we got to add in due time.
So what's the consensus on that? Is the last sentence that?
Let's strike that.
Strike the last
Or strike
sentence.
the
Do we-
last sentence.
Well, what if we just said the DDA serves non-profit and public purposes, period? And just take over this public, I don't quite understand an institution of purely public charity. That's the thing that,
Well, I like the first part of the paragraph, because it just, I mean, it really does say pretty eloquently, all the positive things that you want to achieve. And then that last sentence, it kind of, I don't know, even the beginning part of it to me just kind of puts a little bit of a,
so.
Too much interpretation.
yeah, I just,
It doesn't seem like it's necessary.
Right, I agree.
To be in there.
it doesn't reinforce what the real purpose is.
Shall we move to strike the last sentence, and
Yes.
somebody second that?
I don't think we have to make motions out of this whole thing.
Not until we're ready to pass the whole thing.
Yeah,
Okay.
let's do one revision and then edit.
Yeah.
That's a good.
I think everyone's in agreement we ought to strike
Yeah,
that last
strike
sentence.
it.
The idea that less is more, and we can always,
Who wants to take section 3? I'm going to pass this on.
I'll do it.
Roll around.
Section 3, management powers, number, qualifications, and terms. The property, affairs, and business of the DDA shall be managed by its directors, consisting of 7 persons, appointed by city council from time to time as provided by law. And I'm not going to read that law. The qualifications of the directors shall be provided by law. Directors shall be appointed for a 4-year term or to fulfill an unexpired term, and terms shall coincide with established terms for seats 1 through 7.
The only thing that struck me was it's after an initial term, which we just got through, because not all of us are 4-year terms. We have some 2, 4,
That's
6.
state law. Basically, what he read is straight out of state.
Oh, that's state law? Okay.
When you're first,
Staggers.
you're staggered, so that there's always being a certain number. But once you get over that initial period, then it's 4-year terms.
Yeah.
Or seats and
But
stuff.
we have a combination of 2, 4, and 6-year terms.
That's correct.
That's true, because the initial term, I mean, they haven't had a DDA for, what, over
15
10 years. And again, some of the members were dead. So the intent was to reconvene. In order to reconvene, they staggered the terms.
Those terms set up the staggering
Set up
for the
the
future.
staggering.
So
So
because
that
that's
not
already
everybody
set
is turning over at the same
At the
year.
same time.
Yeah, so in-
by the city council, then I guess we don't have to readdress it. We
No.
can just move
This
forward.
won't happen again that
So
way.
2 years from now, when 2 people roll off, there'll be 2 people appointed for 4-year terms.
That's
Correct.
Or renew.
Or renew.
Exactly.
Okay.
Can the city council name someone to a 6-year term or 2-year term in contravention of the bylaws?
No, that's
That's state law.
This has been in contravention of state law?
No.
No.
So then, why are some 2 and some 4 if this is state law?
When you initially set up a board, you're trying to stagger the terms so
Yeah.
that not everybody's at the same time. So the law calls for 2, 4, and 6-year terms, so that those terms will be every 2 years.
The law does say that, but the bylaws don't. The law calls
Yeah, well,
for
that's
the
already set up.
Because
establishment.
that's already set up in the state law, it's not necessary to be in the, if you have the bylaws, there's an assumption that you're up and running, so it's 4-year terms. But I understand what you're saying.
So legally, we're good.
Legally, you're
Okay.
good.
Are seats 1 through 7 defined someplace else? Because.
You're number 4.
But I don't know, what do we, I mean, I don't, in reading through this, I never saw seats defined, and shall coincide with established terms.
We should have that.
We're almost like paragraph 4.
Okay, well, it doesn't matter, maybe it doesn't matter.
I think it's just saying there's 7 of you, and you have different terms.
We name them to seats or posts or
We named everyone to a post.
So should we change the name from seats to post?
I don't think it really matters.
I mean, if the lawyer's not going to pick up on that, then I don't guess I care.
We good?
Okay with that. Richard, you want to take section 4?
Yes, the directors shall have such power and authority as is conferred upon them by the Downtown Development Authority Law of 1981, as the same now exists or may be hereafter amended, and such other power and authority as may be contained under the Constitution and the laws of the state of Georgia, as the same may now or hereafter exist.
That sounds
Sounds
like
pretty
it, we
self-explanatory.
really can't change that, okay.
Section
4 's
5,
good.
nomination of members. I'm assuming this act work is just from where it came?
Reference,
Yeah,
yeah.
there's
Reference,
2
yeah,
of them
okay.
there, and you choose.
All right.
Yeah, there's 2, yeah.
Prior to the expiration of a member's term, the board shall review prospective candidates who shall meet the qualifications set forth in section 3 above. Such prospective members may then be nominated to the board for approval. Once approved by the board, nominations shall be submitted to the mayor and city council. Prior to the expiration of the term of any director of the authority, the chairman shall appoint an owner of real property in the downtown district and an owner of a business establishment whose principal place of business is located in the downtown district, who are not directors of the authority, to act as a nominating committee and to submit nominations for directors to the governing body of the city.
Does anyone have any comments on those 2 choices? They're
Or a mixture.
somewhat different, yeah.
This is, the council's always going to decide who the new members are, if they want to select new members, but like if you have somebody resign or something like that, if you want to make recommendations to the council, this is how you would want to nominate people.
Yeah, and also, Nancy can chime in on this, the council set up a situation where each member is assigned a post and assigned a council member. And for example, if
Like
Charles decides his term is up and council decides, well, we just can't stand Charles, we're not having him anymore. Then that, and Nancy is a council member, then it's her job to either say, oh, I really like Charles, recommend that he be reappointed, or to find another person. But I don't think that does not prevent this body from making a recommendation.
No, and I would hope that whoever the council member is would look for that recommendation.
I would think so, too,
I would
but-
certainly want to do that. We had a very scientific process for deciding which council member was which member, so I would hate to do anything to rock that boat, but I think we definitely found there's. Hey, did you see it? We had little bowls, and it was a double blind drawing. It was very scientific.
I'd like to reflect on the fact that my council member is here.
Yeah.
And yours isn't.
Do you have points for that, or points
I
taken
mean,
away? I'm not sure.
is it necessary for something to be spelled out in here? I mean, I would just assume that without having some constricting language, at all that it would be common sense that we would try to recommend somebody within our group. I'm not talking about the council, I'm talking about our group.
Thanks for the clarification.
Sorry. But I mean, think about it. And here it says you have to be an owner and you have to be a business, whatever. That doesn't define all of the positions.
No, but there is state law that a certain number have to meet those qualifications.
So I would think we would be replacing or trying to find somebody for whatever the qualifications were
For that person.
that was leaving.
Right.
And this doesn't really spell that out. This actually constricts you
More.
the other way.
If we struck, these are two different, the two things are two different choices. So we could strike the second one to me seems
Yeah.
very restrictive.
Yeah.
And I like personally, I like the language of the Ackworth
I would agree.
provision.
All right, you want to move on?
Yep.
Yep.
We're going to strike GMA.
And it ties back to the qualifications which are legally set forth.
Okay, resignation and
Yep.
removal of members. Members are expected to regularly attend all meetings and other board functions. Any member who is absent from 3 consecutive regularly scheduled board meetings shall be automatically removed from the board without further notice. In addition, any member who has not attended at least 60% of the regularly scheduled meetings within a calendar year shall be automatically removed from the board effective January 1st of the next calendar year. The board may, in its discretion, waive this provision and permit the member to continue serving in a probationary capacity contingent upon establishing a satisfactory attendance record. Any member desiring such waiver must request the same in writing, set forth the reasons for their absences, as well as the specific measures they plan to ensure regular attendance, and ensure that such request is received by the chairperson or his/her designee prior to the time that the automatic removal is scheduled to occur. In the event of disputes involving attendance at a specific meeting, the duly adopted minutes of said meeting shall control. Wow.
This is not in the sample, the DMA or the.
I guess what that does is it takes the emotion and the
Yeah.
pressure off of the other board members to do something that would seem dramatic. And it puts the pressure back on the board member that's not showing up to basically file an appeal.
And the one exception I can think of, which is the reason for appeal, is someone has some sort of a great plague illness or something like that, and they're in the hospital for 6 months, and they're quarantined, and they're going to miss a bunch of meetings, and they may call in by phone or whatever, and they have every right, I would think, to say, look, I was sick for 6 months in the hospital. So be it. But I think that's the only reason I can think someone.
Well, this gives the ability to waive this provision
Yeah.
for circumstances the remaining board members who agree to.
You know, there was a much shorter version in Dahlonega, the Dahlonega version. And it's much shorter. It's a director who's absent from 3 consecutive regular meetings without proper cause shall be subject to removal. The director who conducts themselves in such a fashion as to jeopardize the good public standing of the DDA is also subject to censure as well as removal. The director may be removed by a majority vote of the DDA, and this action is subject to approval by the City Council. That language to me is, it doesn't, anyway, it's different, it's shorter, it's a little.
Well, this doesn't bring the City Council into it.
I'm happy to be in or out, whatever you guys want.
I think this takes a lot of pressure off, I do, the way they have it.
Okay.
I know it is helpful to have an option to get out if it's not working out. But I don't know how you do that.
This only addresses absence. Would we want to add anything in there that talks about behavior?
The city council has the right to remove someone for cause, whatever constitutes cause. I'm sure there's a state law for moral turpitude and things like that.
Yeah.
So that's already a right of the city council, which I don't think needs to be built in here.
Actually, I think with the city council, I think it's difficult for the city council to report to DDA. They have to have cause.
That's what he was saying.
Yeah, okay.
For calls.
Yeah, so they're defined cause, and that's already a listed authority of the city council, and so that's not something.
Do we have to have?
I mean, I guess this board could decide that there was cause, but they could vote to remove someone if you put that in here. But I'm not sure if is it possible for the board to vote someone off, or is that only an authority reserved to the council? Can the board,
put it
by
in bylaws,
majority
right?
vote, remove someone, or must that removal be authorized by the city council?
I believe that's why this is written this way, because it's subject to approval. I mean,
Can the board act on its own to dismiss someone or not?
I think if the board wants to dismiss someone, I believe it has to go to council.
Can we just make a note
So
of that
then-
in our questions
Yeah.
now for legal?
Yeah.
I think you're talking about adding a whole lot more language, whereas this is
Yeah,
for,
plenty.
for lack of showing.
Yeah, this
Okay.
is just
This is
yeah,
pretty,
cut and dry.
okay.
All right, we're moving on.
Yep.
In the meetings, regular meetings, the DDA shall meet at a regular time and place established by resolution of the DDA. Notice of this meeting, as well as other public meetings of the DDA, shall be posted in a conspicuous public place at a regular meeting place. All meetings shall be conducted in accordance with the Georgia Open Meeting Code Meetings Act.
I like this one because it's not specific. We don't have to have, if we don't have any business, we don't have to have a meeting every month. That was something I had in my comments.
Well, you just do an addendum, it can change too. The bylaws are set up, but then you put in place a resolution that sets the date and time for, and then when we put that in place, we could say if there's no business, we can elect not to have a meeting the following month. I agree.
I mean, this may be just verbiage, but is this what the rest of the groups in Roswell use in their documents?
Stephanie?
I'm sorry?
Is this the same kind of language that all the other groups use, all the other,
Notifying. I don't
as far
know.
as notifying? I mean, you can read this part of the sentence kind of twist it around. And shall be posted in a conspicuous public place at the regular meeting place. Does that mean it has to be posted outside this door?
No, just at City Hall building. That's
Stephanie has it posted right now on the Roswell. If you go to DDA board, this thing pops up and it says meetings first Tuesday of every month, 3:35, 30 room 220. And unless we decide to change that for a particular meeting, this is
On
going
notice,
to be
yeah.
And it's
permanent
posted
notice.
at the front doors, at the doors coming in.
It's also on our calendar,
Yep.
and we notify the press through the calendar.
Okay, so you take care of all that. So
Might be worth asking legal if we want to make it consistent with the city policy, just so staff doesn't get tripped up somewhere.
Yeah, this all would seem to follow what's already done. We shouldn't,
It sounds very close, but
I don't think there's any
Yeah,
reason
Well,
for us
I think
to.
because
somebody
it's all-
mentioned that.
They're all
I can't remember.
subject to open meetings law, so that's probably why.
In fact, I would think that all 9 sections of this are probably adopted by council, planning commission, all the public or quasi-public bodies probably have something that's,
that's probably going to be the same question on all of these.
yeah,
It just needs to be consistent with, the other bodies.
yeah.
I'm excited because my section talks about telegrams, and I was trying to figure out how to send one last night.
How you send a telegram?
Huh?
You can change that.
Are we ready to go?
Yeah, let's go.
Anything else?
And we're gonna on section 1, Article 2, section 1, we're gonna find out what language is consistent with the
Move
cities.
forward.
Yeah.
Section 2, special meetings. Special meetings shall be held upon the call of the chairperson, vice chairperson, secretary, treasurer, or any two directors at such time during regular business hours and at such place within the city of Roswell as shall be specified in the notice of such meeting. Notice of special meetings shall either be oral or written. Oral notice may be delivered personally or by telephone and shall be given at least 24 hours prior to the time of the meeting. Written notice may be sent by mail or telegram or delivered personally. Delivered personally by telephone or electronically, such notice shall be delivered 24 hours prior to the time of the meeting. If notice is given to sent by mail, such notice shall be mailed 2 days prior to the time of the meeting. Unless specified otherwise, any notice hereunder called for in these bylaws shall be given as specified in this section. No notice of any meeting shall be given to any director who attends such meeting unless such director attending at the beginning of such meeting states in the objection or objections to the place and the time of the meeting, the manner in which it has been called or convened for the transaction of business. No notice shall be required to be given to any director who at any time before or after the meeting waives notice of the meeting in writing. I do not understand that last sentence. I read it in several different versions of these. I'm sure it's legalese, but why do you have that last sentence?
And the other issue is if it says called by any two directors, I mean, are they saying you still have to have a quorum?
When you have the meeting.
Yeah, otherwise it would be, it's not considered a meeting.
But two directors
call it,
could
but
call
if
it, but
nobody
would
attends.
They can
require
call
a
a meeting.
quorum to convene.
But
Still
still,
required,
you
yeah.
can call
It'd
it.
take a quorum
Not
to
me.
conduct any business.
I'm fine with this if we just take out the telegram.
Yeah, yeah.
I would put email in instead of telegram.
Yeah, that's what I have too.
I like emails instead of telegram. Next time I send a telegram, it didn't get to the person.
Stuck on a horse somewhere.
I don't even want to. Okay.
Yeah, based on the new mailing schedule, I don't know if you should
Also,
strike
like,
mail.
I don't understand that last sentence, but I'm sure it's a legalese somewhere. It doesn't,
Well, say someone is on vacation, they say, look, if you're all going to meet during the next 2 weeks, don't worry about don't worry.
okay, that makes it, now I
Maybe.
understand.
I crafted that one. Not sure.
Thank you.
Closed meetings. The chair may call for a closed executive section of the DDA and no notice is required. Voting on issues discussed in closed executive session must be made by reopening the meeting to the public or made at a future public meeting or disclosed in the minutes following resolution of the issue.
I don't think that was exactly the way we were taught.
I know. I had questions.
That doesn't
about that.
fit the, what we were told.
Again, wouldn't we follow the same closed meeting format of the city council?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so
You gotta open the meeting
Let's
publicly.
just find the city council
You
and
go
close
off
the
to a
meeting.
closet somewhere, and then you gotta close the meeting publicly.
Very
And this,
specific things you can talk about.
and that doesn't sound like it follows it, so I would just put that one back for rewrite.
That was my question. It's like, this sounds great.
It ought to be
But
consistent with the
It doesn't sound
way the
like.
city council does it.
Yeah.
That way we're just,
I mean, is that, Nancy, do you think that's a good model, is to use the city council? And if we
I mean,
find
I
some
think
conflicts?
it's court proven. I think, you
Yeah.
don't have to worry about, but you're gonna meet, I'll meet anyway, and you just meet in the public forum and you say, okay, one of you recommends closure, and they second it, and then you go. But you have to stay to talk about, real estate, to talk about personnel, whatever the issue, but those are really the only
We
areas.
just had one challenged in Augusta, so I think it follows with the city council.
Yeah, we'll try and adopt that language.
That doesn't sound like the way the meetings are.
I'll go ahead and do 4 since it's
Okay,
short.
go ahead.
Annual meeting. At the first meeting of each calendar year, the DDA shall conduct an annual meeting to establish officers and make financial and operational reports and recommendations necessary for the conduct of the DDA's annual affairs. Am I reading the wrong? I thought I saw what you sent back to, it said something about February.
I thought I did too. Maybe
That's
it's in
later.
2 places. Yeah, in 2 places.
Election is in February, down in Article 3, officers. There's an election held in February.
Okay.
I don't know if that's what you're thinking.
Yeah, but
But we actually said, yeah, here, Article 3, Section 2.
yeah.
We're gonna probably be working, the city works on a fiscal year that ends the end of June, right? And we're probably gonna be closing our books at that time and following the city's audit. Should we?
I think that's on here.
Yeah.
Yeah, shall
It
begin.
was in here, but my
Yeah.
thinking is that maybe everything else should follow fiscal years too, for that reason. I'm asking.
Are you saying I signed up for 15 months?
Yeah, that was.
No, 16.
Whatever. Round it up.
We signed you up.
Yeah, we noticed that you.
Yeah, did not
you
sign up
voted
for that.
against.
I think I clarified in there that it was a year, too. What do y'all think? Anybody has
Council
thoughts?
doesn't go July 1 to June on your
No.
terms.
So I don't think we have to do that.
Okay.
It's actually of January, going off of January, right?
First
So,
week of
Right.
January.
yeah.
Unless
Right,
it's
so-
like
So we
that.
could stay with the
Let's do
officers
January.
matching up to what council does.
And do we have our annual meeting in January? Kind of, I don't think you are held to that here. It just says,
Makes
well,
sense.
first meeting
And then
was January, and then you have
Down
election the
below,
next.
that needs to be January though, under officers, to be consistent.
The reason I said February is because the term started in February for the officers this time. And council starts in January, but they're elected in November. So they have a little bit of time before they're taking office.
It didn't take us any time to vote Monica in.
It didn't. No,
Is
really
there
fast.
something about when you appoint new members, a lead time before they start? If that's provided for, that would solve that.
But,
You know, just
but
gives
this
you
is,
time to kind of get acclimated before you get into when you start.
okay, that's right. You got it.
For instance, if somebody's coming up at the end of the term, when do they notify that don't want to be considered for re-election or
If there's a good lead
appointment?
time, then,
So then you would say, well, you'd want to back up for, some period of time to identify new board members.
We have a problem with that because all of us, everybody here expires in February or January, what was the official date? January?
Right.
January.
Do we say when they get notified if they're not going to renew or if they're not going to get reappointed? Our boards and commissions have a policy, I think it's 60 days ahead of
Yeah,
time.
I would think that'd be a good
The mayor
idea.
has to say, either reappoint, offer to reappoint or not. And
Mhm.
then it takes a little while to vote, so it may only be like a 30-day period by the time you pick who the next person is going to be. I think what Stephanie's saying is that give the person enough time to get on board and be ready, because they've got to go get trained.
But you have to be trained in the first year
Okay.
Just in the first year, you don't have to be trained before you start.
or be elected.
Because those trainings are only 4 times a year.
Oh, okay.
But what you're saying is, getting them in it as we go forward, elections occurring after somebody's been attended a couple meetings and then they have election, maybe.
Yeah.
You're
That-
going to have people who, something happens, or they move, or whatever, and it's going to be midterm, or they're fed up or quit, or, or ill, or whatever happens. It's not always going to be predictable on the end of the
I guess
term.
the point being, January, February's not that big a difference, but.
Mhm. Anybody have any recommendations on that, or just want to leave it as it sets? Have our annual meeting in January and election of officers in February. We want to put them both in January.
Well, then we would have to, we still gotta make those consistent.
Yeah.
So then you're not putting establishing officers, you gotta delete that.
Because if you're gonna have officers. with
You
a
just have
small
to-
board
yeah.
like this, you got, everybody that was gonna stay on would have to be an officer.
Or city
You have
tonight.
4 officers.
I got it.
2 people
No,
are gonna
you're
rotate
right.
off.
You're right. Should we just do January and see how that works? Let's do that. Can we change Article 3, Section 2 to January? Quorum?
Quorum. Section 5. A majority of the directors at a meeting duly assembled shall constitute a quorum for the transaction of business. Unless otherwise specifically required by statute or these bylaws, the act of a majority of such directors present at a meeting at which a quorum is present shall be the act of the authority. And if at any meeting of the authority there shall be less than a quorum, the majority of those present may adjourn the meeting without further notice until a quorum shall have been obtained.
Can I move that Section 5, 7, 8, and 9? Well, we might need to look at 8 because it is a little bit different. But 5, 7, and 9, as long as they are concurrent with the other boards, that
Yeah, I would agree.
I mean, it's
Checking
let's-
off the other
Let's
ones.
just go with the standard language.
Yeah.
Section 9, telephonic participation. Upon motion of, wait a minute, excuse me, I got ahead. Sorry, Rich.
No, but I think what I'm saying is 5, 7, and 9.
Okay.
If everybody's comfortable with those, I was just going to make a recommendation that we just confirm with legal that they are the same as
Yep.
the city's typical language
Yeah.
for board.
Mhm.
Would that be okay?
6 here.
Yeah, we're missing a 6.
Yeah. So 6 is parliamentary. Minutes. The minutes are the only thing.
6
Except
is
it-
missing.
Yes, there is no section 6.
Well, I changed it.
Oh, okay.
I dropped. Parliamentary procedures is now 6. Section 7 is minutes.
Got it.
The only thing that looks, that's unique to us is that minutes are not required unless land acquisition is, no, we do need to read this because this is a little bit, I'll read this one. Minutes of a regular, special, or standing committee meeting must be recorded. Minutes must be made available to the public after they've been approved by the DDA, but no later than immediately following the next regular meeting. Minutes must include the names of members present at the meeting, a description of each motion and other proposal made, or record of all votes. For a closed executive session, minutes are not required unless land acquisition is discussed. But the reason for closing the open meeting must be reflected in the open meeting notice. Minutes. That make sense to you?
I think we could be.
Minutes are not required unless land acquisition is discussed. Well, the only other thing you can talk about is the
That's it, right?
Employees.
personnel.
Yeah, rental, you could be doing something with, and that's what happened to us in Augusta. It wasn't about the acquisition of a piece of property, it was about the sale of a piece of property. So I think that
Sales are public.
Yeah.
no, I'm just telling you about the legal challenge they have, is that you need to have it, it could be about a rent, it could be about acquisition, it could be about a sale. There should be a legal term that covers everything to do about real estate or, because it's going to be real estate. We get into other transactions other than acquisition.
Yeah, it's true, we've done that, we've done sales stuff, but we haven't just called it acquisition of real estate, which is probably not
The
technical.
open meetings law says that you can go into a closed meeting for the acquisition of real estate, and that those minutes have to be taken, but they're not disclosed until after the deal is done. And there are certain things I think you can redact from them. But this position is supposed to be like a public sale. It's supposed to be bid out to, put in the paper and,
That gets weird.
And likely as not, we might be doing long-term leases or things like that.
Right.
I'm just trying to give us as much flexibility.
I thought that the Downtown Development Authority did not have some of the same restrictions that a total public body had, that we would not necessarily have to take, the highest bidder. We wouldn't necessarily have to, give the same terms to everybody and that kind of stuff. And that would be, there's no way you can do that in an open meeting.
Yeah,
This is probably one area I'd suggest is the more is better? Because it's the one area that I still haven't got my arms around what we can talk about, and whether we include it in the bylaws or we got the law sitting with us.
Right.
That's detailed so we know exactly what we can and can't discuss. Because right now, we could get into some things and still scratch our head as to whether we really think we're.
This is the number one thing that bothers me.
Yeah.
On throughout the whole things, I've read through the open meeting law, and I'd like some legal opinion whether, because of our entity of what we're doing, if there's not a broader scope of things that we can have an executive meeting for, because we're not just a public entity. Because if, for example, if we're going to bring someone in to discuss, if we're going to discuss an area and we're brainstorming ideas which may involve later potential acquisition or strategy, and we're just talking about it, no action's being taken. Or someone on the board has a
We run into that a lot.
what?
We run into that a lot. Most of it has to be public.
And so are we not any different because we're not? I mean, I understand an elected position thing,
The attorney at this training session I just went to in Tifton differentiated between city councils and DDAs and said that, for example, if a city council is proposing to sell real estate, that is barred from executive session, closed door session. The acquisition can be a closed door session, subject to disclosure and minuting afterwards. The DDA can go into executive session and needn't have those conversations and debates publicly, as well as other contractual matters. So that the DDA, according to this, it was Glazer, I think was the attorney, said that we have considerably more latitude for closed executive sessions than the city council, and so the whole thing about what we must minute, what we must not, where we may and may not go into executive session, is one of the important distinctions between us and the city council, and the way that we can fulfill those distinctly separate roles. And we need to not just be a rubber stamp or do the Me Too sort of thing. We need to say, according to state law, we may do this, we must do this, and here's the differences. The minutes
And that goes back to why the Dahlonega bylaws are written differently. We said there's a conflict between the open meetings law. They're under the same law, correct? I mean, so how did they get that passed?
I'm not sure how theirs is set up, their constitutional authority, if they wouldn't be open, they may not be subject to the same laws.
Okay.
Could I propose on this paragraph that we get the attorney involved and to have it, it's going to be longer, probably the longest paragraph we have, but that we include procedures, as much specificity on what can and cannot be discussed. So it is sort of, when we have our first one, whenever that happens, we can all pull this thing out together and we can look at it and read it where it's there in reference, rather than we're all trying to pull things out of a state law and interpret it.
I have a question, because if you look at the guide, there's nothing about minutes in it. The bylaws, the sample bylaws, there's nothing about minutes. Why don't we do that as a policy or procedure or something like that?
A resolution?
After the fact, or so that it is in our bylaws. See, if it's going to be voluminous, if it's going to be...
Well, I'm not, it might be 3 or 4 paragraphs, but I'm just saying it's probably the one area that gets a little more procedural and qualifies the discussions. So it's our reference guide, because it's the one thing we're probably going to struggle with most.
Yeah.
Most of the other things are pretty practical, fact-based. This one has some, it is fact-based as well, but I think we're trying to interpret something we don't.
But we don't want to box it in, because you can't anticipate every single
Right.
It seems
situation
like,
that could come
It
up.
seems to me like if you're trying to have something that's a go-by or something that's going to guide you, don't put it as bylaws any more than you do that when you're incorporating your company.
All right.
I'm just...
Well, let's have it somewhere
Yeah,
for us.
I do want to have it someplace.
Yeah.
I agree with you.
What is the name of, I mean, there's another name for the document that once you get done with the bylaws in most charities, the next document is,
Financial policies?
what is it? Not financial.
Financial
articles.
No, it's more like.
Articles.
Resolutions? Is that-
Articles and memo of association.
No, it's more like the operating procedures.
Oh, okay.
Whereas this gives you, kind of the high level, this is like the Constitution, and then the rest of it becomes more of your, state laws or whatever, just tells you how to operate on the ground. I can't think of the name for that.
Operating agreement?
Yeah, there's a more, I don't know.
Policies.
I know what you're talking about because the Georgia Conservancy, when we have a question comes up, they have this book and they look back and they find.
Yeah, there's a name for it, but it doesn't really matter. I mean, we can do that, but it's another whole document.
All right, let's give it a shot. See what David talked about, put it in here. If we can get the lawyer to do it something concise, let's go ahead. We can just do it in here. I don't want to come up with new.
Can they contact Delonico? Because their language,
I'm going to be there on Friday. So I feel.
will you drop in? That would be great.
I was going to go talk to Joel anyway.
All right.
But about something else.
Because this is the one area that I think could, as you've heard me, I mean, this is my big concern, is like making sure we're very clear that we're obeying the law, but we also don't hinder ourselves from being as productive as we can in our unique capacity.
I think it's kind of hard when you don't have any experience to write bylaws for an organization. You don't really know what's going to work.
Spring in February.
I did try to pull the open
Yeah.
meetings law out of the Dropbox, and Lonnie, I think you pulled all the files out. There's your answer.
They're all gone.
Over is
It's on his desktop.
And who said you can't mess things up?
I had a bunch of money parked in there.
All those
Bring me your
accounts,
receipt.
numbers, they're all gone, Ralph, sorry.
Give it to me, Ralph. I'm the treasurer.
Okay, so do I hear a motion for me to put the files back?
It's not a motion, it's a demand.
So we want you to have one of your kids do it so that we can make
Yeah.
sure.
All right, where are we?
Okay, we got down to officers. I think section 1, the number. Well, some of these I don't think we have to read all the way through. They're pretty clear. But if anybody has a problem,
And we changed section 2 to January, right?
we did.
Yep.
Here's where we could remove, we were wondering about that.
Yeah.
In section 3.
Mm-hmm.
Oh wow, you don't even have to have cause. Does anybody have any comments on section 3, article 3, section 3?
Do we have that authority?
That's, the officers are named and voted upon by the directors and serve at the pleasure of the board, but the directors serve at the pleasure of the council. There's a difference there, I think.
So if a director,
So an officer can be removed
right,
by the other directors by majority vote, but the directors can't be removed except by cause by the council.
Yeah, this just means like somebody else being changed.
because this is only talking about officers then.
Yeah. I think section 4 is fine. Anybody else has any comments? On section 5, on the chair, executing documents, notes, contracts, don't we want to have 2 signatories on those kind of things?
I
do you not necessarily? I don't know why.
I think the whole key to that is
Authority, yeah,
authorized by the DDA.
Okay.
right.
Or refusal to act as chair. Ralph, just so you notice number 6.
Yeah, I think that's all authorized by discussion, vote, minutes,
Okay.
that it's a matter of, I'm not sure you necessarily have, for a legal contract, that's the one representation of the authority, but it's all been authorized, so.
Yeah.
And the conditions under which it's authorized would be a matter of minutes and record.
Question.
Yes.
There's, we're using different terms in different sections. Like here it says chair, another place we've said chairperson. Does anybody have a preference? Because I want to try to go back and make it consistent.
I'm fine with chairman, but chair probably is a little brief.
Chair
Yeah.
is funny, it's an object.
Yeah, chair, it's a noun. Chair,
The chair,
chairperson,
it's designee. They're just-
chairperson is fine, chairman is fine.
Nice.
Same thing with this.
The chair, this last sentence says the chair shall have general oversight and supervision of the finances in coordination with the executive director and the city
Oh,
clerk.
yeah, we don't have that.
You got the executive director and,
I just scratched that out. You don't have an executive director, and I don't think you need to
Yeah.
issue a recommendation.
Would that be in the coordination with the treasurer and city clerk?
I don't think city clerk has anything to do with it.
Who's our city clerk?
Then, because should we just,
Do we need that sentence at all?
do we just strike the whole thing? Yeah, because the treasurer is the one who's, right? Would there be any reason to have it? That position's not really coordinating with anyone?
It's up to y'all.
Or do we want to coordinate it with the treasurer?
Well, it says
The
there's-
purpose is oversight and supervision of the treasury
That makes
functions.
sense.
Yeah.
They look at section 8, responsibility for keeping records and
Right.
accounts. And the chair has the supervisory obligation along with the city clerk or designee of the staff.
So then you just you end the sentence after DDA, since we don't have anybody, right?
What do you want to do?
Well, that's an important responsibility of the
Yeah.
chair, is the financial oversight.
I guess we're still, as we evolve, we probably will have an executive director, and we will have, would the city clerk then be involved in any way?
does the city clerk certify the audit?
Yeah.
Because
Would that be
we're
true?
gonna-
Or does our finance director?
I don't know who sort of.
I think that should be in here, don't you think?
Well, there's.
Because there's audit information,
There's
yeah.
more information on that, so I didn't know whether this needed
Probably under fiscal
coordination.
policies.
Pardon?
I'm sorry. This is on the officers. This is maybe the financial policies, fiscal year section, the annual audits covered there. You might want to add language there.
But here, because I think we do have annual audits,
Yes.
but who in the city would certify our audit?
Whoever does it for the city, it would,
It's an outside entity, isn't it? Or the other cities do each other, there's some kind of reciprocal thing in there.
I thought it was just a letter from the auditing firm that's.
Okay. You may be right. I'm thinking of something else. Whoever that body is.
It's got to be third party. It can't be somebody from the city auditing the city.
Right, but, well, and I think the auditor does it, and then don't we vote to accept it or something? Seems like
I haven't been involved in that.
The annual audit section seems to stand alone just fine.
This is, would we want to put in coordination with the executive director, as that position is filled, or leave this for an additional amendment in the future? Should we add an executive director?
You could strike that last sentence,
Yeah.
and then the treasurer, in the last sentence says, treasurer shall make reports to the DDA, and then the treasurer is subordinate to the chair implicitly. And we don't have an executive director, so there's no reason to mention that. And
No
then,
coordination.
you know, as Charles says, there is a requirement for an annual audit, and that's subject to board review anyway, so.
So do we take out the sentence after in coordination with the executive director and the city clerk, just put a period behind DDA?
We could, or we could strike the whole sentence. He's suggesting, if I understand you correctly.
Yeah, you could just strike the
to
whole
strike the
sentence.
whole sentence.
I know that when we hired a director just recently, there was a sentence in here about this, because you want to make sure that the boss has, I'm just.
So you would say put the period after the
I'd put
DDA.
DDA.
after DDA,
Okay.
just
Okay.
because you gotta have, you're the rector.
Cool with that?
So we're just going to put a period after DDA.
Yep.
Okay.
So you can just do a search and change with all these chairs, right? All right. Now, the secretary, we have a recording secretary. So wouldn't section 7 be changed to a, we'd have a secretary with a little bit different, Duties.
You need a secretary.
yeah.
I don't know that, does the recording secretary need to be with you?
The recording secretary is not a director, and this pertains to the roles of the directors. Recording secretary, it's required that we have minutes for the meeting, but the secretary could take those minutes, or someone else, and not necessarily have a separate person serving the role as a recording secretary.
But under section 4, it provides for a recording secretary if a non-member.
Well,
I don't think you have to designate it in here, but we could have any further.
Article 3, section 1 says the director shall elect the recording secretary who may or may not be
Right.
a director.
Change that if you want.
What we do need is a secretary. I just, what I'm reading, the secretary shall provide for the keeping and reporting of minutes.
Some, like Mr. Pilati was saying, some PDAs have a combined treasurer secretary as well. Make that if you want. I mean, you've already decided your officers,
Yeah.
but you know,
Well, in the event that you're not here for some reason, we've got David to jump in, right?
You wouldn't be able to read it.
we still have tape.
Well, yeah, I guess that's true.
But he's still, I guess what this is saying is the keeping and reporting of the minutes as far as reviewing them for accuracy. And, right now it's not as significant, but when we get into defining contractual issues and what we're, where there's the detail of information is so important.
I think I read somewhere, Stephanie, correct me if I'm wrong, aren't there some documents that are required to be signed by the chairperson and secretary? That's I talked about that seal thing, and
Yeah.
we decided we don't really need a seal at this time. Let's don't buy one or have one made unless we find we need it.
I mean, this is a pretty standard definition of a secretary
Okay.
in an organization. So I think, these are just kind of the formal definitions of these offices. He doesn't necessarily lay out,
I just didn't know if we needed to put recording secretary, but I guess it's provided for. Okay.
The recording secretary is almost a subset of the secretary. The recording secretary is providing the physical function of some of these secretary responsibilities.
Sometimes support person.
Yeah.
But that's covered in 4, so do we need to read?
No, I think this is still the definition of the secretary.
Okay.
Done.
All right. Treasurer looks good. Pretty standard.
Mm-hmm.
Section 9. And section 10, it's just the standard. So the fiscal year is consistent. This is Article 6. Section 1 looks concurrent with the city.
Is that what we're doing now? Are we going from July? Are we going to do the same fiscal year as they do?
We don't, this, section 2 underneath here is duplicate to article with, section 2.
Yeah.
Section 4, construct, correct?
Do that. But back to section 1. Lonnie, I think we were going to do that because we have to have audit, so we would use the same audit firm to do.
But fixing the annual meeting really pertains to Article 2 meetings.
Yeah, we zapped that.
Not to financial matters.
We struck it. Can anybody think of any reason why we need to change our fiscal year inconsistent with the city? Seems like it'd make it easy. Okay. Section 3, I think, is standard, consistent with what the city does. Do we need to have an audit like this year? I don't know if we could afford one out of our budget, actually.
Well, I just audited this bank statements back to 2003, and the only thing that's happened has been one deposit and 20 cents a month in interest. That's it. In fact, I still have the first check. 5001 is still sitting in the book, so there hadn't been a check written.
These checks probably aren't any good either.
The point probably would be for us to transition clean. You know, likely maybe a statement from the auditor to say we're not carrying any baggage from any unknown whatever, even though it looks like there's nothing happening forever. But there was something happening 15 years ago. I don't know whether this thing's ever been active to any extent. Right? It started. When was it initially started? 83. That'd be 98.
It was shortly after the state law passed.
So it may or may not have been
Couple
doing
years.
something, which
Right.
we may not be able to find out what that was.
So one thing I know that they did that was kind of the end of the DDA was festival that was in conjunction with the 96 Olympics.
I had a feeling it was that.
Yeah.
That was
That was the beginning of the end of the DDA? Is that?
It didn't go real well.
When was the $5,000 that's in the account put in the account?
My understanding is that most of that is from a what did I say? What am I called? One origination fee for High Meadows. I don't know what High Meadows was doing. If it was
Some long time back. So when was the last time that it was audited? The DDA, if ever?
I think I might know about that. I was chairman of that building committee with High Meadows when we built. I was on the board at High Meadows,
Really?
and we did an industrial, and we did a development bond. And Steve Romine was the chairman.
Oh, wow, yeah, I
And,
remember that.
So that was the Development Authority and not the Downtown Development Authority? Because he gets confused sometimes between the two. So.
We floated a bond. I know I was on the board at High Meadows when we did that.
Because how would that have been in the downtown? It wasn't in the boundary.
Maybe it was the development authority.
It must have been. But that was what I was told.
My first
So I don't know
statement,
where it came
my first statement in here is 2003, December 2003. There was $1,437 in the account.
Mhm.
And then in March of 2005, whatever year, 15 months later, there was a deposit of over $4,000 made in. And that's the last activity that's been in here since then, since 2005. And I don't have any record of where it came
High
from.
Meadows, they wouldn't have been that building because that would have been closer to 2000.
You know, it might be prudent for us either to defer to state law if in fact that's a requirement, get an opinion from the city attorney as to whether that's required, and if it's not required, then to have like a balance sheet review by the city clerk that says we've reviewed the bank accounts and financials and are satisfied this is a fair presentment of that because we 7 people here have had nothing to do with this today,
Yeah.
and we don't want to
Gives
find
a
out
clean
that there's
start.
actually supposed to be $27,000 and that we only have 5. And just defer to what, if it's a matter of state law, then comply with state law. That's easy. And if it's not a matter of state law, then we need to get a clean bill of health from the city saying everything's cool as of the date we turned over the keys to you.
We've gone through some of the budget items that we might have for next year and things that we might ask for. The audit was one of them. It's been discussed with the budget director, and I think I've seen it on the reports that different Main Street development and downtown development authority different Main Streets have made to DCA. So it's almost like it's assumed you're going to have an audit, but I don't know.
So we have 2 things here. Section 3 is probably good for going forward, but we may need to make a resolution. Like what you're saying, is how to start this out.
The city may or may not be, if it's a matter of state law for development authority to have an audit, it hasn't been audited in a number of years, that may be a loose end that needs to be tied up by the city.
Well, why don't I, as treasurer, why don't I take that ball and I'll follow through and report at the next meeting whether I can get it done between now and then. Is that simple, or whether I can describe the process we got to go through? I'll do that between now and next meeting.
Section 4 looks pretty straightforward. And again, y'all stop me if we want to just go read through these. I mean, it was the first part where it was kind of organizationally, but now these are more standard. But please stop if there's anything in here that you want to address. I think Section 4 is standard.
Something you may want to do in talking with Bill Keir to have a resolution for this bank account issue, because what I've found out from calling the bank again is the K is not listed. There's one person that has passed away. There's another person I can't find in a Google search. The other is Cheryl Greenway. So I've left her a message. She's a CPA and she was on the DDA originally. So
I'll follow
like
up with
I said,
Cheryl too.
Okay.
You know her?
Yeah.
Because like I said, I don't know if anybody's going to hear back from her until after April 15th.
Yeah, but she's right across the street.
Yeah.
We have under now, they're bad.
On Section 5, why don't we have it where checks, drafts drawn against the account shall be signed by the chairperson, the vice chair, the treasurer, or any combination of 2. You want to have, because
Right. In the event someone's out of town and something has to be done.
Dave Smith's going to be spending a lot of time at his house in Grenada. We may not be able to get a hold of him.
Wow.
Really?
I think there was one like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, just basically,
Yeah.
any 2 of the officers.
Yeah.
And then what happens is you end up going over to the bank every time there's a change of officers, and you delete somebody off the account, or you add somebody onto it.
Sounds great.
I just went through that.
You really don't want to have any 2 officers signing. You want to have the people who are accountable, which is the treasurer and the chairman or the chair, because otherwise you get 2 other directors that aren't financially accountable as the person who's, they can sign a check. You really.
Well, what I've seen in some cases is a dollar amount. If it's under 500, under 1,000, then any officers can sign it, or executive director, and when they have one. But if it's above that amount, then it needs to be the treasurer and Well, you can have one signer, you can have two. I just remember someone saying that you wanted two signers.
Boy, from an operating standpoint, I've had to sign, again, I hate to use the example, but every Thursday I have to go sign checks at the church and finding, and we have, several people that are legitimate for it or able for it. If we do become an operating thing, or we're having just two people, I'm not disagreeing with you, I understand, but.
Well, I think what I'm hearing is it's a function of size and activity.
And, yeah.
And that's for you to decide.
Because I mean, right now, I'm just, not thinking there's a whole lot of
Right.
And ultimately, I mean, until we get into a regular operating mode, the checks that are written are probably going to be authorized by a resolution or by a vote, and we're all accountable. So, I don't know.
I don't know how this works, but, I mean, could you, just even in the meantime, Lonnie, put a, say, the vice chair as a second signatory with some kind of written approval by whoever's not, either the chair or the treasurer who's not there. Does that make sense? Just in the outside chance that, the chair and the treasurer aren't available. Just thinking.
The reality is, there's one checkbook, it's probably going to sit in my house, right?
I've
So
seen
nobody's going to
treasurer.
do anything unless I get it to somebody else to handle, I mean, practically speaking. So, what, I might suggest that you just go we can either go to Star, the chair and the treasurer, or the chair or the treasurer and a second officer. That allows me to go on vacation, give Monica the book, and to get, one of the other officers to sign for it.
That's a great
In
solution.
case I'm not here, but if we're here, I don't expect that we're going to be running either voluminous checks or I need a check tomorrow afternoon. I don't think we're going to run into that circumstance
Yeah.
very often, that we're not planning ahead, thinking ahead. So for the time being,
That's a great solution.
we will try in every case for you and I to sign it. And if for some reason one of us is gone and we have to have something signed, then we have at least the latitude to go to another officer.
But
So
were
we
you
don't-
suggesting that right now just either?
No, we
Both,
both.
still
I'd
both.
rather for a time period, just both of us sign it. I don't think we're going to run that many, and it just keeps a check and balance on it, and it's always apparent, and, we got cover for each other, so to speak.
So
Okay?
So
And if
how
for some reason we're writing 100 checks a month or something, then we'll
come back
we'll come back and say it's not practical for us to do that anymore, and we'll change things. But I think this is a pretty low
Then you have
volume
to hire
check
an executive
operation.
treasurer.
Huh?
Leave it
Paid
be.
position.
Oh, I don't know. Let me see what it says
It
now.
doesn't provide for another officer, so. Or in the event that the chairperson or treasurer is not available, the
Yeah,
chairperson.
that's what I'm suggesting. Is
Yeah,
if one of us is not available, then a third officer can sign.
Can you get that? We need that legal language in the event the. Is everybody okay with that?
Stephanie, did you say we had to be out of here at a certain time, or?
The next one's.
That's the next one's the short one.
Very-
I got them flipped.
Yeah.
I was gonna be in and out.
Scheduled till 5:30.
Okay.
And we don't have that much more to do.
Yeah.
The rest looks good.
It's better to go along.
There's
with
like
it.
paragraphs, yeah, and that's pretty
Right, that's it. And then,
stuff.
would we need a resolution stating banking, et cetera? I mean,
That's what I was gonna say, Bill
Not
was
this year.
suggesting a resolution saying who the signatories of this official body are, that we could take to the bank since we're having trouble,
Yeah.
and just have them do it, see if they'll do it that way.
can we have a resolution before bylaws are signed?
I think so. I don't know, like, I mean, you're an official body without bylaws. The law doesn't say you have to have bylaws.
You want a motion?
It's a good thing to
I
have.
move that we have our chairman, our treasurer, and our secretary, and our vice chair all on the signature card.
Do I have a second?
With 2 signatures required.
Okay, so the motion is that the signature,
4 officers.
that all 4 officers will be on the signatory, and 2 officers, well,
No?
No.
That either the
I'm saying it right.
chairperson or the treasurer and one other officer be signed the check.
Right. So all the officers
That-
will be on the
No,
signatory.
the chair and the treasurer will sign the checks, but in the absence of one of them, then the other.
Chair.
one
The
of
chair
other
or
2
treasurer with
right,
one of
of
the
the
other
other 2 officers. can-
Plus one of the,
But all 4 will be on the signature card.
Right.
The bank's not going to know that.
Nor do they need.
The bank will make you sign a resolution waiving that they can, cash a check with any signature or no signature on it. And you'll hold them harmless from that.
Well, as a practical matter, I hate to say, but most 2-signature accounts are completely worthless.
Now you bring that up.
I'm sorry.
After all this?
Yeah, no, but I mean, that's just from the banking side.
No, it's not worth it. It's worth something to those of us signing the check.
Yes, yes. Well, it gets down, I guess, to the liability of the board.
Yeah.
Right.
You follow the procedure, you're liable.
Exactly, that's what it sounds like.
I don't have this language just yet.
I'm not even sure when the last time
Okay.
got
Okay,
it.
great.
Want to restate it again?
We always deal with these e-check things.
Can you read what you've got? Let's see, make sure we're all.
I've got, I don't have a second.
I'll second.
But we need to know what we're voting on.
Right.
What I'm just about to read right now.
I have it moved and seconded that a resolution be prepared by the Downtown Development Authority to the Bank of North Georgia, or notifying the Bank of North Georgia that the signatories on the account will be the chair, vice chair, secretary, and treasurer. In the event that the chairperson and treasurer will be authorized to sign checks, and in the absence of one of those 2, one of the other officers can sign,
2 signatures are required.
and 2
Yeah.
signatures are required. All right.
All in favor?
No, I was going to
amend.
ask that we amend that to just be the chair and the treasurer, just for sake of simplicity. And if we encounter difficulties, then modify it later.
You guys try.
You said chair and secretary, you mean chair and treasurer?
Chair and treasurer, sorry.
We'll just take your
If you
checks.
run into difficulties once you need something pretty quickly,
Pretty quick.
then you'll have to amend your resolution and change the signatures again until we need you to vote.
I just think that it's important to have separation of responsibilities, and the chair and the finance director or the treasurer are primarily responsible, and having 2 other people that can sign checks around them, I think is not a good separation of duties. And
Well, what about the vice chair, because the vice chair has authority to step into the
Right.
chair?
That's correct.
So we can
What about one
specifically.
of the staff at the city? As a
no, the
secretary?
city, they can't. They're not a member of the authority. They're not.
Well, the vice chair is
But the
already
vice-
established in here that they
That's
will
correct.
take over if she can't
In the
come. So
absence.
that'll be, in the
The only
absence.
one's
So what
left
about
is the
that?
secretary.
Oh, that's a
You
good
have to
solution.
be here.
Yeah, you are not going on
You have no
vacation ever
substitute.
again.
If you have a house in Granada, we're going with you. so.
Would someone like to make a motion that we amend the proposed resolution to include
I'll withdraw my resolution. I'll withdraw
your motion?
my motion.
All right, do we have a new motion? Nothing.
Read the motion.
But that's
The-
been withdrawn, so now we
Okay,
need a new
well, the-
The
motion.
right way to do this is to withdraw the motion.
Okay. And then I make a motion that the chairman and the treasurer should sign the checks together, 2 signatures, correct? In the absence of either party, then the vice chair will sign. Is that correct?
It will be accepted as a
Will
second
be.
signature. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Everybody unanimous? Conveyance of title, this is the last thing we have here, unless someone wants to add anything additional.
Well, I would suggest that this is probably as important as signing checks.
Mhm. Yeah, I agree.
We just got done proving that everybody but the secretary could sign, so in this case, I suppose you can be consistent.
So the same 3
Which
people.
means the second officer is only the treasurer if we're being consistent. If we don't really care, then
Yeah, section 2, right.
section 2, right?
Should we just go ahead and change Article 7 to Section 2 to be modified, as well as the signature of the treasurer shall be required? Is everybody okay with that? That's all the same?
Because then 1 and 2 have the same basic format.
Right.
Well, plus I would suggest conveyance of title is going to roll back through all the financial records. There's, movement of consideration, all kinds of things that have to be tied together financially.
Amendment to bylaws, though, I would just make sure, does anybody have any comments to this one? This is Section 1.
Nope. Did these get signed by somebody? I can't remember bylaws. Do they have a signature block at the bottom?
Some of them did, some of them didn't. I'm not sure whether we got complete copies, but.
Maybe stamped by the Secretary of State.
Yeah,
That's what I would guess.
yeah.
Dahlonega did have a conflict of interest component in here, and where it's listed, and when I just want to comment, I mean, my comment was, this looks like you have to kind of lay it all out in public record, and it's that if it comes up, we're going to stick with, do we want anything in our bylaws on how we deal with conflict of interest at all? And we're required,
State law? Is there a state?
there's state law.
provision?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that more a matter of policy, that it's going to be a little bit longer and more intricate than we'd want to put in the bylaws?
That might be in the operating, whatever we want to call that agreement.
Operating policies, isn't it just operating policies, maybe?
But when I put the stuff back into the folder, I'll figure out what the name of it is.
That is so funny. Okay. Well, I think if anybody else has anything else they want to include it in the bylaws, and then we will address, at this point, does anybody have a recommendation for how we want to handle issues like conflict of interest? Do we want to address this now, or let's go ahead and get the bylaws nailed down and then have that?
I think we could do a separate meeting for those things that we want to get operating procedures on. That's one. The closed meetings is another one. There's
Right.
probably a few others that we just want to make sure we have the state law or any legal opinion written in a little binder that's
Talking right there.
keep right here.
And that could be a more dynamic agreement as well,
Right,
that
yeah.
we add to or, modify as we go along, and it's not as constitutional as this one is.
Okay.
Did you want signatures of bylaws or no?
Whatever's customary, I would suggest. as the attorney's reading over this, he can tell us whether we ought to sign it or not.
Okay. Other old business is the State Historic Preservation Conference, April 19th through 20th, followed by the Georgia Trust for Historic Preservation.
I mean, I would like to sign up personally for that. I don't know how we want to go about it, but, you know, what was the deal on signing up, and, you know, is there a schedule of, I guess this is in here. Maybe it's
I think I wanted to find out who wanted to sign up for the State Historic Preservation Conference. Because I believe the DDA can pay for that as sort of the training budget. The ramble is really not as much of an educational thing, so I don't know if it would fit as training. It's more of a tourist.
Well, I'd like to be signed up for all of it, and whether it gets paid out of this or not, I don't care.
Okay. I just wanted, if anybody wanted me to sign them up.
Who else? Is there anyone else here who'd be interested in going to?
The CVB is handling like reservations and coordination stuff, but they're not actually, you know, paying for anybody or. No, I don't think so.
Lonnie, you're going to be able to go as a member of the HPC and use it as your training for your CLG.
Okay.
I think the only one who can is Richard, because he took training last year.
Okay. Well, do I need to? I mean, can you sign me up for it then? Since you got a lot of hats on right now.
Yeah, actually, your new planner, Courtney, I think is taking care of that.
Okay. When do we get to meet?
Next week.
Okay.
Started
By default, at the
Yeah.
next meeting. Yeah.
She's cool as a cucumber.
The 14th.
Not days.
You go down there.
Yeah.
Okay. Can I'm not sure if I can do it, but I'd like to. Can I get back with you on that?
Sure.
Virginia. Wow.
Okay, new business is, we have our retreat planned for April 13th. We're looking at locations, but where was it? Up near Cumming. EMC.
Fun.
Okay, yes, near Cumming. So it's going to be outside the city. It is technically an open meeting, but it's just a day where we're going to have our maps, and we're going to, we have a facilitator, Nikki Knox, who has been signed up to come, and she's been active. What's her experience in the downtown?
She was the Main Street director in Valdosta, Georgia, and then worked for the Department of Community Affairs in their Office of Downtown Development for the region that, the North region, the region we're in. No, actually, it's the North Mountains region, and does this facilitation on a regular basis for development authorities, and downtown development authorities.
What was our time period for that, our window that we're meeting?
We don't have specific times, but it's going to be a day-long thing. Sarah.
I just need to be back here by night because that's my wife's 50th birthday.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you do.
Otherwise, I need a living place.
You need a place to live.
Well, we could start real early and get you out. Oh, yeah.
Were you going to be able to talk to her, if she was going to give us some ideas of things to bring, thoughts, et cetera?
Well, that's what, yeah, and that's what she has. She's got a great layout as far as where to take us, as far as really visioneering of where we see how the DDA, all of us collectively see the DDA being active in Roswell. One of the things she recommended was to take each of us to take a city here in Georgia, and I suggested there may be there's more of us than cities, that we might even, if anybody has ideas of cities even outside of this in Georgia or even in other states, I mean, to call them and talk to them. We have Swanee, Marietta, Athens, Decatur, Woodstock, and of course Greenville. And by that time we will have gone, those of us who are going to Greenville. we can digest that information.
When we were talking about cities, Nikki said, by any chance, is anyone going to Greenville in the near future? I said, why, yes, they are. Quite a few of the DDA members are going.
That is funny.
But I've talked to Jackie about the itinerary that you have, and it sounds pretty tight, like there really needs time to kind of go aside and talk to the downtown manager there. But there are opportunities when those people will be speaking, and you'll be able to ask questions that you may want to take note of.
Okay. So collectively, we can brainstorm on how to split that up. So I had sent out in my email is just think about what cities you're interested in. Anybody want to sign up? Because I want to. And what you're going to do is you're going to go visit these cities if you can. I mean, if they're too far, you can go. No, they're all here. For Athens, just get on the phone and really talk to them. Find out what they've done, what has worked, what hasn't worked, what do they want to do. What if you just basically extract every bit of information we can from them, as far as so that we can learn from other people's mistakes and successes.
And anything else? What Nikki was thinking with that is that you come back and retreat and do like a 5-minute report on it.
Yeah, I think it's a good starter for the conversation.
I can talk to Woodstock.
Okay.
You could add like Norcross or something to the list too.
Decatur.
You
Actually, I'm working with DeKalb right now.
now. What about LaGrange?
Same thing.
I mean, are you? She said.
Yeah, let me.
They've got so much money from the Callaway Foundation, it may not be a fair share.
Yeah, it is. They got a sugar daddy that makes everything works very easily.
We need to find out what they. Maybe we need to talk to them actually.
How do we get one of those?
We need one of those. That's exactly.
This process.
We're going to have a communal sugar daddy.
Swanee, Marietta,
Swanee.
Athens, Decatur,
And Woodstock.
I'm open to any of them.
and Lonnie's going to get Woodstock, right?
Yeah.
Dave, you want Decatur, you said?
Well, I was looking at it because I'm working in DeKalb. I don't have a relationship with Decatur, but I mean, I guess I could talk to them. I mean, it'd be interesting because they got some.
All of them.
Yeah, I'll take Decatur.
Okay.
I'll take Marietta, just
Perfect.
sign somebody, so that.
Anybody want Athens?
I'll take Athens.
Did anybody take Decatur yet?
Dave?
No, you
Too
took
late.
Decatur?
Ralph is Athens. Swanee. Swanee?
I'll take Swanee.
Tony could go to one.
I'd like,
You want to go to Decatur with me or?
I'd like to go to Woodstock.
Okay.
You and Lonnie go doing Woodstock.
Yeah, you.
What city do we feel like most like Roswell? Marietta?
None of them.
There's different facets of each of these really. Woodstock's great because they're really dynamic right now. I get you in touch with their economic development director who is fantastic to talk to.
Yeah, I forgot to print out that thing you sent the other day
From Dahlonega.
for Dahlonega. Dahlonega just made a list of like everything they've done, and it's pretty impressive.
We don't even
Can
have,
you put it in a Dropbox or? Yeah.
we don't have Dahlonega on.
Don't put it in Lonnie's Dropbox.
Would you like to go? You could do both. You could do both.
Lonnie's is called Dropbox.
Yeah.
And let's remember when he starts talking about his
Okay, I'll
computer
try.
thing.
You're not doing Woodstock with me, or?
Let me know when you go, and I'm ready to go with you, but
Okay.
I'll do Dahlonega. We don't, that way.
Okay.
Yeah, you're thinking you could call Dahlonega, right?
Who's doing Marietta?
That's
Dahlonega is so small.
We have some contact.
David.
$6,000.
I'm going to go to Mary Ann.
Yeah, David.
It's so different.
Contact person.
Yes, she's gonna,
Okay.
you've got contact for people for all these.
Yes.
Don't you?
Okay.
Yes. We'll get that out to you guys right away. What about some of the more, Charleston, Savannah, haven't been with that in mind lately? Has there been any?
Suburb basically started as a suburb. And its own city.
What was it?
If it started growth mainly because it was a suburb, because some of them, like Greenville's great, but it's the city. It
Yeah.
really isn't competing with a larger city right next to it.
That's true. I'm trying to.
Cary,
North Carolina would be good. Interesting.
And that's another one though, they're a factory, or family-owned town, basically, is how they started.
Cary
So they're-
was?
There's a suburb outside of Charlotte too, that had a river running through the downtown, with a mill town. I can't think of what the name of it is.
It's not Gastonia, is it?
No.
South
Is
Rockmart.
Mecklenburg County or is that?
That's the county.
North of it, we did,
That's
their
right.
state, I've done several hospitals, there is, Alpharetta is to Atlanta I did the hospital there.
Is this in Charlotte?
It was north of Charlotte.
It's up by Lake Norman.
Lake Norman.
Lake Norman. That's,
Lake
what's the city there? That's state, I don't know, it is Lake Norman. But it's not the
The one that
city.
Jill was talking about is in master plan.
I have a friend, one of my dear friends just moved from there a couple years ago.
That's the town I'm thinking of. Here's the one that, I think it's there.
I talked to Christian. He may not want to talk to me. All right, I can talk. I'll be happy. It doesn't hurt to call people. I mean, we don't have to go to North Carolina. Do you want me to find out about that? Because it's not going to be near the population. But I'll find out about Charlotte suburbs. These are second and third tier. That's a third tier suburb. We're kind
Yeah,
of
second
tier.
tier.
And down south of Charlotte, in Union County, you've got Matthews, and you've got Waxhaw.
What about?
It was Matthews.
Matthews?
Charlotte was Matthews. It had railroad on it.
No, yeah, that's Waxhaw down south of there.
Concord.
But that's south of
I
Charlotte.
have it in my office.
Okay.
I think it's Concord, though. Does that ring a bell? Concord Mills, it was originally Concord Mills. And I'm going to dig through and just see if I can find anything from some other outside of Georgia, just to see if there's anything, other cities that we really want to look at, even though they may not be indeed second tier. Does anybody else have any other new business?
Thank you.
Ronnie, what time do you need to head north? Oh, you can always take off on the 13th.
Yeah. There's nothing said, but there better be.
Oh, let me tell you what. Yeah, I had a 40. Yeah.
The map, the smaller one, you know, with the bigger one. That
Yep.
one, the smaller one, Robbville Ross Transportation Department gave that to you guys to show you what the preferred alternative is for the Gateway Master, the Gateway Transportation Project. We're going through the master plan right now. So it's going to open up some areas for development possibly.
Right.
And it'll be nice when they have something that'll show you better what the topography is going to look like there. Because it's pretty drastic where
That's huge.
the island comes in.
Mhm. I was just going to, do we need to talk anything about Walk of Valor at this point? Do we? It's not.
Actually, what
Did
did
you
you
send
heard
something?
any more about the Groveway opposition?
There might be some, yes. And so, the Groveway Code is coming up for City Council first reading on the 12th, right, so next Monday.
Correct.
So, there's some word out that there may be some opposition about it on a number of issues, and so those of us who served in that committee have encouraged all the committee members to be at the meeting Monday night Certainly that committee was together almost 18 months working on that code. Councilwoman Diamond is working on various elements of it. She's getting feedback from a lot of different places.
I move we adjourn before we
Oh.
go discuss further.
Second? All in favor?
I'll do all, but I don't want to,
Okay.
I just don't want to mix our
That's fine.
business.
Good point, Charles.
Yes, it'd be good to show up.
Now we can politicize.
Well, I just did-
Over here, your forum.
Yep, we can't.
You can't talk about it.
We still can't talk about it.
Okay, this is Monday night.
City council.
It's not our business.
Reason
Neither yet, neither is the Walker Fowler. Not yet, anyway.
That's right.
So we're not talking about our business.